So, for those of you old enough to remember, I mean, it's 12 years ago on that vid. It could have been longer than that on the original, but IBM had done a video which was something like "the future is here," blah, 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 whatever, right? But it was literally about some shady white guy in a sort of long overcoat type thing as he just fills his pockets with various items. You know, remember. And by the way, to this day, that's a common run theme when it comes to anything to do with advertisement or when we're talking about, well, crime in supermarkets, theft, anything like that. Have a doubt in that? Well, 3 ways to arrest the retail crime epidemic. Well, white guy, well, for a start, obviously, yeah. How about Tesco's? Tesco customers to see major changes in stores as supermarket launches huge crackdown. Older white guy. Yeah? Of course. Absolutely. Hey, they've signed off on that one. Where were we? Under fair use. Let's continue. You know, because he's out of the Matrix, yeah? I mean, remember, oh my God, the levels of this and so much more. Anyway, at some point, I'll leave you a link to it, because nobody seems to look for anything themselves. Well, that's not entirely true. There's many people that do look for data themselves, but there's many others who don't. Okay, let's be fair. Yeah. Anyway, but here. See, basically everything in his pockets, the whole thing is tied to him. RFID to the yin-yang, although nowadays they don't call it RFID. Near-field communication device sounds so much less, well, authoritarian. But anyway, and of course he goes, "Hey, sir," words to that effect. And this guy is, whoever this character is quite the prick. Not even a thank you, just I know better in life. Anyway, let's do this. Let's see if I can get away with this. And
excuse me, sir. Forgot your receipt.
What a prick. Anyway, I'm not talking about that guy. This. Anyway, we're off at tangents. But when I see things like this, under fair use, brazen thieves casually grab handfuls of steak and salmon from Waitrose in London. A Waitrose. Now, you could even spend quite the time on analysing that vid, the confidence of the perpetrators, the confidence, the knowledge that they know they're not going to be stopped. Everybody stands around watching these people. Security. By the way, what the hell is that these days? I had some experience in the past. In no way would I look at myself in any way, shape or form as professional. But up until about 2007, you just had really decent people at the job. They weren't scared to muck in and literally make sure that crime was stopped. Yeah? Even in relation to supermarkets and security, previous to that, with staff and a certain code over a tannoy. Yeah? But you had this thing kicking called the SIA. The Security Industry Authority. And I remember at the time it had this bloody sort of snakehead symbolism for the logo at the time. And one of its first downloads of what was required and, was 666k. I remember that distinctly. It changed after that because it was as obvious as. But basically the idea was everybody who had been involved in door stewarding, security of any kind, all the rest of it had to be background checked, all the rest of it, a certain certification, had to pay so much money, blah, 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 and then updates for that, etc., etc. And anybody apparently perceived to have any kind of history was no longer, or had the ability to do what they did. for years previous to that. And the excuse was that would raise the cost. That would raise the wages of those involved in the industry. Nothing could have been further from the truth. Anybody who was awake at all at the time knew that where that was going. But we're now at a situation where paid for SIE badged security just, escorts them out the door. As in, like, as opposed to, hey, put that down, or you can't do that, pal. None of that. Nope, it's don't come back. Oh, well, that's him told. And of course, they're all wearing these bloody Bluetooth, etc., headsets, never realizing what it's doing to their brain in real time. After all, most people apparently don't seem to care about this thing called the blood-brain barrier and its effects of this kind of thing on it. But, no, he was told. So that's how you get to the Amazon Go's and the Tesco's, where they're going. Yeah, think about this. The supermarket chain is launching a new high-tech security hub to target shoplifters and reduce violent crime against staff. Tesco said the multi-million-pound centre was part of a major investment to keep its staff and customers safe, along with other measures it has introduced. These include equipping staff with body-worn cameras, installing protective screens, and rolling out door entry systems at store entrances. Add the chip, the digital ID, the cashless society, and of course you'll only be allowed to eat 20 grams of meat a week. How do you implement all that? And then, just type in police hubs, supermarkets. Be assured, the solution that will be made apparent is that we need to have police more involved in, corporations like Tesco. After all, when you're seeing so many police stations shutting down, and yet crime has certainly not got any lower, organisations, corporations like Tesco's and maybe Morrison's and various others in the UK. I mean, after all, Morrison's has already been sponsoring police vans, etc., recording vehicles, etc. That was years ago, by the way. But how do you get there? Yeah? And then think of various underling occultist groups and networks, agitators, change agents, confident in the knowledge that they've been told, you're not going to be stopped. You're going to do this very publicly, but with, some kind of hidden aspect to your head, etc. Like the confidence knowing that the security beforehand is told, hey, you'll lose your job if you intervene. So what's the point of security? But if you're wanting to get to things like this, and this, another white guy, had to be, order out of chaos. It's there in plain sight. And all we need to do is implement the laws that we already have and enforce them. As opposed to hearty words online. Priorities, ladies and gentlemen. None of this is an accident. Order out of chaos.